First contact through fire. The crystalline spires of the Zilani homeworld caught the light of their twin suns, casting rainbow patterns across the peaceful cities below. In the orbital command center, Commander Kythera stood with her long, graceful fingers pressed against the viewing portal, watching the gentle dance of light through her translucent skin. The Zilani had known peace for over 3 centuries, their elegant civilization built on harmony, art, and scientific discovery. "Commander," called Navigator Thys, her young voice filled with excitement rather than alarm. "We're receiving an unusual transmission from the Outer Rim territories. It appears to be a distress signal, but the pattern is completely unknown." Kythera turned from the window, her tall frame moving with the fluid grace that marked her species. The Zilani had evolved on a world of gentle breezes and calm seas, their bodies adapted for peace rather than war. "Show me," she said, her melodic voice carrying the authority of her rank. The main display filled with a star chart showing the frontier region, where few ships ventured. A pulsing red dot marked the source of the signal. The audio came through next, a harsh, urgent pattern unlike anything in the Zilani databases. "It's definitely artificial," reported Communications Officer Yenth. "But the language and transmission method are completely foreign. Could be a new species." Kythera felt a flutter of excitement. First contact with a new civilization was rare and precious. The Zilani had encountered 17 species in their expansion into space, and each meeting had enriched their culture. "Prepare the Harmony's light for immediate departure," she ordered. "Full diplomatic mission loadout. If someone needs help, we'll provide it." The Harmony's light was the pride of the Zilani fleet, not a warship, for the peaceful Zilani had little use for such vessels, but a massive diplomatic and rescue craft. Its bioluminescent hull gleamed as it broke orbit, heading toward the unknown signal at maximum speed. 3 days later, they arrived at coordinates that should have been empty space. Instead, they found devastation. "By the light," whispered Navigator Thys, her voice breaking. "What happened here?" The main screen showed the wreckage of what had once been a space station. Twisted metal drifted in a slowly expanding cloud of debris. Energy scoring on the larger pieces told a story of deliberate destruction, of weapons fire meant not just to disable but to obliterate. "I'm detecting life signs," announced Sensor Officer Drex, his voice tight with disbelief. "Faint, but definitely there. In that central section, it's barely holding together, but there are survivors." Kythera felt her heart racing. The brutality of the attack shocked her. In all their encounters with other species, the Zilani had rarely seen such wanton destruction. "Take us in carefully. Prepare a medical team, and keep our sensors at maximum range. Whoever did this might return." As they approached the wreckage, they got their first clear view of the station's construction. It was blocky, utilitarian, built with heavy armor plating that had only partially withstood the attack. Very different from the elegant curves and organic shapes the Zilani preferred. "That's military-grade hull plating," observed Security Chief Forth with surprise. "Much stronger than needed for a research station. These beings expected trouble." The docking team managed to create an airlock seal with the least damaged section. Medical Officer Hess led a team through, carrying equipment designed to work with unknown biologies. Kythera watched through their helmet cameras as they made their way through corridors carried by weapon fire. The survivors were found in a sealed emergency shelter, and Kythera's breath caught when she saw them for the first time. They were bipedal like the Zilani, but shorter, stockier, with dense bone structure visible even through their protective suits. One was clearly injured, red fluid, blood, the medical scanners confirmed, seeping through a tear in her suit. "Incredible bone density," Hess reported. "Their gravity must be much higher than ours. And their musculature. They're built like living armor." As the medical team approached, the mobile survivor moved with startling speed, placing himself between them and the injured one. He held a weapon, crude but effective-looking. "We come to help," Hess said, the universal translator projecting calming tones along with the words. The being hesitated, then spoke in a rough, deep voice. Though the translator couldn't parse the language yet, the desperation was clear. Slowly, the survivor lowered his weapon and gestured to his injured companion. As the Zilani medics began their work, Kythera noticed something on a nearby console, a recording device, still active. "Can we access their logs?" she asked. "We need to know who attacked them and why." The technical team began working on the alien computers while the medical team stabilized the survivors. What they found sent a chill through the peaceful Zilani crew. "Commander," reported the communications officer, "we've partially decoded their recent transmissions. They were attacked by a species called the Korthek, raiders who have been targeting mining and research operations in this sector. And these beings, they call themselves humans. They're from a planet called Earth, and according to their logs, they believe they were alone in the galaxy until now." Kythera looked back at the screen showing the humans. One was conscious now, a female with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. When she spoke, the translator had begun to make sense of her language. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chin," she said, her voice weak but determined. "This is Engineer Marcus Torres. We're from the Kepler Research Station. Are you really aliens?" "We are the Zilani," Kythera replied gently. "I am Commander Kythera. We received your distress signal and came to help." Sarah's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "We never imagined. We thought we were alone out here. The Korthek came without warning. They just started shooting. 63 people were on this station." Her voice broke. "Marcus and I only survived because we were in the deep labs when they hit." Before Kythera could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Harmony's light. "Commander," shouted the sensor officer. "Multiple ships dropping out of warp. They matched the energy signatures from the attack." On the main screen, 6 angular, predatory vessels appeared, their hulls bristling with weapons. The Korthak had returned to finish their work. "Raise shields," Kythera ordered, though she knew their defensive systems were designed for protection against space debris and radiation, not military weapons. "Open a communication channel." Before communications could comply, the first volley of Korthak weapons fire streaked across space. The Harmony's light shuddered violently as energy beams struck its hull, alarms wailing as systems began to fail. "Shields at 30%, cried a technician. "They're targeting our engines." In the damaged station, Dr. Chen grabbed Kythera's communicator with surprising strength. "They're back," she said, her voice filled with grim determination. "The Korthak. You need to run. Your ship won't survive. The Korthak will tear it apart. You shouldn't have come." On the bridge, Kythera watched 2 Korthak ships break formation and head directly for the human station. "They're going to finish what they started," she whispered. But then something extraordinary happened. Marcus Torres, despite his injuries, was pulling equipment from damaged lockers. What emerged were weapons. Heavy, brutal-looking devices that both humans reached for with practiced hands. "Your people need to get back to your ship," Marcus told the Zilani medical team as he checked his weapons' power levels. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." "That's suicide," protested Medical Officer Hess. "There are only 2 of you, and you're both injured." Sarah's face twisted into what the Zilani would later learn was a human smile, though it contained no joy, only fierce resolve. "We're humans," she said simply. "We don't go quietly." What happened next would be talked about in Zilani space for generations. As the Korthak boarding craft approached the station, the 2 humans activated systems the Zilani hadn't even noticed. Hidden weapon ports, emergency barriers, tactical networks built into the station's very bones. The research station revealed itself to be a fortress, and the humans its determined guardians. The small lifeboat carrying the Zilani medical team had barely cleared the station when the real battle began. The humans had turned their refuge into a maze of kill zones and defensive positions. The Korthak, expecting easy prey, found themselves facing beings who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to survive in a universe that wanted them dead. Commander Kithura watched in amazement as the humans used every trick, every piece of equipment, every structural advantage to turn their shattered station into a weapon. They moved with purpose and coordination that spoke of training, of preparation, of a species that had learned to fight not because they loved war, but because they loved life too much to give it up without its struggles. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the humans had disabled 2 Korthek ships and forced the others to retreat. Sarah Chen and Marcus Torres were both unconscious from their injuries, but they were alive. More importantly, they had saved not just themselves, but the Zilani crew who had come to rescue them. As the Harmony's light limped back toward Zilani space with the 2 human survivors in their medical bay, Commander Kithura found herself changed by what she had witnessed. She had seen a species that faced annihilation with defiance, that protected strangers at the cost of their own blood, that turned disaster into victory through sheer determination. "Commander," Navigator Thys said quietly, "what kind of species are they?" Kithura looked at the medical bay display, showing the 2 humans in healing pods, their readings strong despite everything they had endured. "I think," she said slowly, "they're the kind of species we want as friends." Little did she know that word of the human survivors was already spreading through Zilani communication networks, carrying with it a message that would soon reach a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, a world called Earth, which had just learned it was not alone in the universe. Earth's answer. The message reached Earth 17 days after the rescue, transmitted through the fastest Zilani communication relays. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Luna Station, reading the decoded transmission for the 3rd time. Her weathered hands, marked by decades of service, held the datapad steady despite the magnitude of what she was processing. 2 survivors, she said aloud, her voice carrying the weight of command that had guided humanity through countless crises. Sarah Chen and Marcus Torres. 61 people dead. She looked up at the holographic display, showing the location of the attack, far beyond humanity's previously explored space, and we're not alone anymore. General Harrison, head of Earth's defense forces, leaned forward in his chair. "The Zilani seem peaceful enough, Elena. It's these Korthek raiders we need to worry about. If they're hitting human installations, they'll do it again." Admiral Vasquez nodded grimly. The rescue of 2 humans had created an unprecedented situation. First contact with an alien species, the discovery of hostile raiders, and the knowledge that humanity's expansion into space had put them in danger they never knew existed. "Ma'am," interrupted Communications Officer Park, "we're receiving a follow-up transmission from the Zilani vessel Harmony's Light. Commander Kithura is requesting permission to open formal diplomatic channels." "Granted," Vasquez replied immediately, "and patch me through to President Martinez. We're going to need a fleet." 3 weeks later, the largest fleet in human history assembled at the edge of the Sol system. 57 ships of various classes, from massive battlecruisers to fast attack vessels, all bearing the blue and white insignia of the United Earth Defense Force. At their head flew the UES Determination, Admiral Vasquez's flagship, her hull gleaming with fresh armor plating and the latest defensive systems. But this was not a fleet assembled for conquest. Each ship carried diplomatic teams, medical personnel, engineers, and supplies. Humanity had learned of their rescue by the gentle Zilani, and they were coming not as conquerors, but as protectors and friends. "Admiral," reported Captain Morrison from the navigation station, "all ships report ready for jump to hyperspace. Destination: Zilani Border Station, Serenity Point." "Take us out," Captain Vasquez ordered. "Time to show the galaxy what humanity is really about." The jump to hyperspace was smooth, but the 3-day journey gave Admiral Vasquez plenty of time to study the intelligence reports on both the Zilani and the Korthek. The Zilani were indeed peaceful, a civilization of artists, scientists, and diplomats who had built a society based on harmony and mutual cooperation. They had little military capability, relying instead on their reputation for fairness and their ability to mediate disputes. The Korthek, On the other hand, were raiders and scavengers. They preyed on weaker species, taking what they wanted through force and leaving destruction in their wake. Their technology was crude but effective, their ships designed for intimidation and overwhelming firepower rather than finesse. They're bullies, observed Dr. James Wright, the fleet's chief sinologist. They pick on targets they think can't fight back. The Zilani fit that profile perfectly, and they thought humans did too. Admiral Vasquez replied, thinking of the brave last stand at Kepler Station. They're about to learn otherwise. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Serenity Point, they found themselves facing an unexpected sight. A massive Korthak war fleet had assembled, over 100 ships of various sizes, all bristling with weapons. At their center sat a massive dreadnought, its hull decorated with the trophies of previous conquests. "Admiral," reported the sensor officer, voice tight with concern, "the Korthak fleet outnumbers us nearly 2-1. And they've got the Zilani station surrounded." On the main screen, Serenity Point was clearly visible, a beautiful organic structure that looked more like a flowering crystal than a space station. Around it, Korthak raiders held position, their weapons trained on the helpless diplomatic outpost. They're using the Zilani as bait, Admiral Vasquez realized. They want us to come to them. A communication request came through from the Korthak flagship. Admiral Vasquez nodded to her communications officer. "Put them through." The screen filled with the image of Warlord Vectas, a cruel-looking being with scales, multiple eyes, and teeth like broken glass. "So," he hissed in accented but understandable English, "the famous Deathworlders have come to play hero. I am Warlord Vectas, and this sector now belongs to me. You will surrender your vessels and submit to Korthak authority, or watch your precious Zilani friends die." Admiral Vasquez stood slowly, her expression calm but her eyes hard as steel. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked human installations and threatened our allies. You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from this system, or we will withdraw you." Vectas threw back his head and laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 60 human ships against 100 Korthak vessels. "You Deathworlders are as stupid as you are ugly. We will crack your ships like eggs and feast on your—" 59 seconds, Admiral Vasquez interrupted. The communication cut off. Around the human fleet, weapon systems came online, and shield generators hummed to full power. The ships moved with practiced precision, forming attack formations that spoke of countless hours of drill and preparation. "Admiral," called Captain Morrison, "all ships report ready for engagement." "Time's up," Admiral Vasquez said quietly. "Begin Operation Thunderclap." What followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human fleet didn't charge forward in a heroic but doomed frontal assault. Instead, they demonstrated the tactical brilliance that had allowed their species to survive and thrive on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. The first wave of human ships, fast destroyers and cruisers, spread out in a wide formation, their engines pushing them to speeds that made the Korthak ships look like they were standing still. As the raiders moved to intercept, the second wave appeared seemingly from nowhere. They had used the gravity well of a nearby planet to slingshot around and strike from an unexpected angle. The Korthak found themselves caught between hammer and anvil as human ships demonstrated coordination and tactical flexibility that turned the larger enemy fleet into a liability. Ships that had been designed to overwhelm weaker opponents through brute force found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and utterly outclassed. But it wasn't just the tactics that shocked the watching Zilani. It was the humanity the human fleet displayed even in the heat of battle. When a damaged Korthak vessel sent out a surrender signal, the humans immediately ceased fire and dispatched rescue ships. When raiders tried to use Zilani civilian vessels as shields, human fighters performed impossible maneuvers to disable the Korthak ships without harming their hostages. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Korthak fleet was scattered, their dreadnought drifting powerless with its warlord in human custody. Not a single Zilani civilian had been harmed, and human medical teams were already working to save injured Korthak, who had asked for quarter. Commander Kithara, watching from the bridge of the Harmony's light, found herself speechless. The humans had demonstrated military prowess that surpassed anything she had imagined, but they had also shown mercy, honor, and a protective instinct that extended to strangers of different species. Admiral Vasquez, she transmitted to the human flagship, we. How can we thank you?" The response came immediately, warm with genuine emotion. "Commander Kithara, you saved 2 of our people when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. In human culture, that makes you family. And we protect family." The formal first contact ceremonies took place aboard Serenity Point 3 days later. Admiral Vasquez and Commander Kithara signed the Treaty of Serenity, establishing the first interstellar alliance in human history. Dr. Sarah Chen, recovered from her injuries, served as humanity's first sinological advisor, while Marcus Torres began work on joint technology sharing projects. But perhaps the most important moment came when High Counselor Xyrim, the eldest of the Zilani leadership, spoke to the assembled humans and Zilani representatives. "For 3 centuries, our people have known peace," he said, his melodic voice carrying across the gathering. "We thought it was because the galaxy was a gentle place. Today we have learned that peace exists because there are those willing to fight for it. The humans have shown us that strength can serve beauty, that warriors can be protectors, and that the universe is vast enough for many kinds of courage." Admiral Vasquez stood to respond, her words carrying the weight of humanity's hopes for the future. "High Counselor, we didn't come here as conquerors or crusaders. We came because someone needed help, and we had the power to provide it. That's what humans do. We stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Today, we're not just 2 species sharing the same galaxy. We're allies, friends, and family." As the ceremonies concluded and the combined human-Zilani fleet prepared to begin joint patrols of the sector, a new chapter in galactic history began. The Korthak raiders found themselves facing not just one species, but an alliance that combined human tactical genius with Zilani scientific innovation. Other aggressive species took note and began to reconsider their own predatory practices. But most importantly, 2 very different species had found something rare and precious in the vastness of space: understanding, friendship, and the knowledge that no matter how dark the universe might seem, there were those willing to stand in the light and fight for what was right. Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's first interstellar ambassador, summed it up best in her first report back to Earth. "We went to the stars thinking we were alone. We discovered we were part of a family we never knew we had. And when that family needed protection, humanity answered the call. Today, the galaxy is a little brighter, a little safer, and a lot less lonely." The alliance between humanity and the Zilani would grow over the years, eventually encompassing dozens of species and spanning half the galaxy. But it all began with a simple distress call, answered by beings who couldn't ignore a cry for help, and responded to by a species that never forgot a kindness. In the end, it wasn't human weapons or technology that changed the galaxy. It was the human heart, the refusal to let others suffer when they had the power to help, the willingness to fight for strangers, and the understanding that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to protect. The stars had waited 14 billion years for this moment, when 2 species looked at each other across the vastness of space and said, "We are not alone. We are family."